Developing right now on Morning News Now, a stressful start to the summer travel season. This morning, thousands of people trying to get home after the long holiday weekend as another severe storm system wreaks havoc on the south, disrupting travel from coast to coast. Right now, millions of people from Texas to Georgia still at risk. We have team coverage for you. Breaking overnight, a holiday tragedy in Philadelphia. Several people, including teenagers, struck by gunfire at a popular park, killing at least 2. And in Arkansas, an intense manhunt now underway for a convicted rapist and murderer who was once a police chief after a daring escape from an Arkansas prison caught on camera. Now authorities saying he may have had help.
Opportunity, and he took it. All it takes is, being able to find a way to get out of this area, and he can be anywhere in the state.
We'll have the latest as the search intensifies. Also this morning, rush orders. Manufacturers in China scrambling to ship goods to the U.S. before the 90-day trade truce ends. And end of an era. They were once the can't-miss events of the year, but now some of the biggest music festivals are scaling back or even canceling their productions altogether. Why organizers say they are being forced to face the music. Go.
Good to have you back with us.
Thank you.
I
know. Here I am, fresh off vacation.
Good to have you with us as well. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your day with us. We're going to begin this morning with the severe weather creating a holiday weekend travel nightmare across the country. In the southwest, storms spawned this massive tornado. It touched down in eastern New Mexico, but luckily no serious injuries or damage were reported. Well, in northern Texas, a severe storm produced golf ball-sized hail that hit homes and cars.
In the south, the storms were so strong, they ripped part of the roof off of this tornado shelter in western Tennessee. Officials say the interior was not damaged. No one was injured. Mother Nature is not done yet. More storms are forecast for today, threatening to disrupt travel, with airlines still trying to catch up from yesterday. FlightAware reports that on Monday, more than 7,000 flights were delayed and nearly 400 were canceled. Our Angie Lastman is standing by. But first, NBC's Ryan Chandler has the very latest from Dallas.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, Memorial Day not mixing with Mother Nature for a lot of travelers across the country. That's severe weather with just terrible timing during this travel rush as millions of Americans try to get home, causing major delays at some major airports from Denver to Dallas down to Houston. At one point yesterday, the vast majority of flights were stuck on the ground waiting to take off. Denver even issuing a ground stop for a brief period yesterday due to thunderstorms. One of their planes getting struck by lightning. Here in Dallas at one point yesterday, we had more than 200 flights delayed at once, with lines at DFW like I have never seen in my life. Some travelers actually saying they're glad their flight was delayed because they never would have made it through the TSA line if it wasn't. Now today, as that severe weather moves past Texas, it's a different story here at Southwest Hub. People are getting home safe and sound after some miserable few days for holiday travelers, guys.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. For more on the risk of severe weather today, let's get a look at your Morning News Now forecast.
Angie Lastman joins us with all that. Hi, Angie. Good morning.
Hi there, guys. Good morning to you. Ryan just said it. That severe weather moving east. We're going to still see some impactful kinds of locations when it comes to severe storms through the next 24 hours or so. And today, this morning at least, we've already got some of these thunderstorm watches that are up for the first half of the day. They're mainly focused across Mississippi and Louisiana, but they do include New Orleans and Jackson. We've got some thunderstorm warnings as well, and you can see why. Kind of a robust line of thunderstorms working its way east, still waking up to wet conditions across parts of eastern Texas, Houston included in that. So we'll see some kind of delays, a little bit of a slower go on the roadways and such, and maybe at the airports there for the short term. But it's essentially going to be Texas to the Carolina coast that we see kind of the more flood risk impact, as well as the potential for some of these stronger storms to fire up later today across a couple locations. It's parts of Texas and New Mexico that we'll see, and of course across parts of the Gulf Coast, stretching from Georgia back to Mississippi, where we have that slight risk. The good news is our tornado threat is on the lower end. We could see maybe 1 or 2 of those, but unfortunately it's the hail and the wind gusts that have that better chance, specifically the hail across parts of Texas, including Del Rio, San Antonio, and Fort Stockton. So something to watch through the day today into this evening. And then we turn our attention to the system moving a little farther to the east. It means heavy rain stretched from the mid-Atlantic back to the Great Lakes. This is going to be kind of impactful when it comes to road travel, maybe air travel, not as much for the severe weather, but more so the heavy rain that will impact your day-to-day activities. Otherwise, the severe risk will be stretched across the Gulf Coast once again for tomorrow. So kind of a rinse and repeat, not quite as robust for those ingredients to be there, for us to see more widespread kind of thunderstorms, but still parts of New Mexico and Texas will be included in that. Hail, again, one of those greatest threats. And on top of all that, we saw kind of the flooding concern over the past weekend, and that kind of takes us into today as well. We've got the risk for flash flooding. It's a slight risk for places like Charleston, Montgomery, Alexandria, and Austin, but this is going to last through the day today as we pick up another couple of inches. By the time we get to Thursday, we'll see the chance to see anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches across much of the southeast. You can see that's where those highest amounts are, so we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Otherwise, big picture look for your Tuesday. We'll see some cloud cover working into the northeast, but it's great conditions expected out west. We've got sunny skies. They had a great weekend there. Plenty more sunshine and warm temperatures to come for our friends there. Unfortunately, for Thursday, it looks like we'll see those wetter and cooler conditions across the northeast and still dealing with rain for our friends across the southeast, even as we head into the end of our work week.
All right. Out west, the place to be.
Yeah.
Shall we?
So much rain in the east.
You.
Wow. Thanks, Angie.
Got it.
Well, in Philadelphia, at least 2 people are dead and 9 others injured after a mass shooting in a popular park late last night. Police say the shooting began around 10:30 p.m. near a picnic area as people were wrapping up their holiday celebrations. 2 adults, a man and a woman, were pronounced dead. The 9 other injured victims, including 3 teenagers between 15 and 17 years old, were listed in stable condition. The Philadelphia police commissioner says that so far no weapons have been recovered.
We have our team up there. Crime scene is now going through, looking at the shell casings. We'll be able to determine, if it was one weapon or multiple weapons. But it's pretty rapid fire, so we're going to be pretty confident that there probably was a switch on this guy.
No arrests have been made, and investigators are still not released any information on any suspects.
A nation is in shock this morning after a car plowed through a crowd of soccer fans in England. Dozens of people were injured as they celebrated Liverpool's English Premier League title win. Before that ramming took place, hundreds of thousands of fans took to the streets yesterday to witness the team's victory parade. Police say they have arrested a 53-year-old British white man who they believe was driving the vehicle. Police also said they're not treating it as a terror-related incident. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez has the latest from a shaken Liverpool and a warning some of the images are graphic and could be disturbing.
Hey there, yeah, as you can see, a major police investigation is now underway, trying to understand how this championship parade, a gathering of joy, turned into a real scene of horror yesterday. We're at the bottom of Liverpool's Water Street, and it is here that dark minivan came careening into the crowd a little after 6 p.m. local time yesterday. You had fans of Liverpool Football Club lined up on both sides of the street here. They were celebrating their team's victory in the English Premier League when this van came crashing through. Authorities say nearly 50 people were injured. That includes 4 children. One of those kids was actually trapped underneath the van. Firefighters had to pull that child out when they arrived on the scene. Police are saying that they have arrested the driver of that van. He is a 53-year-old white British man from the Liverpool area, according to authorities. They are saying they are not treating this as an act of terrorism and that they believe this is an isolated incident. They aren't looking for anyone else. But we still do not understand what exactly happened here, whether it was intentional or to what degree it was intentional, and what potential motivation there was in this case. Authorities have not yet brought charges, but we may learn more. I can tell you we are seeing just an outpouring of condolences from across the world of sports, including from LeBron James, who is actually a part owner of Liverpool Football Club. And the anthem of this soccer team is "You'll Never Walk Alone." I can tell you there is a real feeling in this city today that people are holding each other close and they are supporting each other through this tragedy. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Raf, thank you.
Well, the stalled effort to negotiate a ceasefire in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict is leading to escalating rhetoric between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin and Mr. Trump are trading insults after Moscow continued to pound Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities with drones and missiles for a third straight day yesterday, despite claiming to want peace. NBC's Bianca Fascini has the latest on what it all means for the U.S.-led effort to broker a ceasefire.
Absolutely crazy. Emotional. These are the terms U.S. President Donald Trump and the Kremlin use to describe each other these days. The war of words erupting days after Russia launched several deadly attacks on Ukraine.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin.
Following the president's comments, a spokesperson with the Russian government said Trump might be dealing with, quote, emotional overload. It's a significant shift in tone from just last week, when Trump had a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin that he said went, quote, very well, and included discussion on ending the conflict with Ukraine for good. Meanwhile, Ukraine says Russia launched over 700 missiles and drones Sunday, killing at least 18 civilians, including children. One Ukrainian resident says, let the world wake up and see. How long can they bomb children? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging the U.S., Europe, and, quote, all those around the world who seek peace to impose sanctions on Russia, writing on X that they would serve as a guaranteed means of forcing Russia not only to cease fire, but also to show respect. But Putin isn't the only leader Trump currently has harsh words for. On his website, Truth Social, the president writes, President Zelensky is doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. Everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it, and it better stop. Now, it's unclear if President Trump is seriously considering sanctions, but GOP lawmakers here in Washington, like Republican Senators Lindsey Graham and Chuck Grassley, are working on a bill that would impose sanctions on Russia and its allies. In Washington, Bianca Fascini, NBC News.
Thanks, Bianca.
Despite the U.S.-China trade truce, operations for many Chinese factories still have not returned to normal. And that is an issue for many American companies, which initially paused their orders when President Trump announced his 145% tariffs in April. Well, now there's a backlog of orders. And with so much uncertainty, well, some suppliers in China are now looking for new customers based outside of the United States. CNBC's Beijing Bureau Chief Eunice Yoon has more.
I'm at a factory in the port city of Ningbo. 100% of its products have been selling in the U.S. on Amazon and other retailers. The company says that it's feeling relieved about the U.S.-China tariff truce, but it's hardly business as usual.
Like many other Chinese factories, this maker of outdoor gear and other items has been holding inventory for its U.S. customers who stopped shipments when President Trump hit China with 145% tariffs in April.
Boxes are piled up next to production lines, which the company says is not normal practice. These boxes have been here since January. They were supposed to ship out in April.
For now, most of this factory's clients are trying to rush backlogged orders to the United States during this 90-day pause in the trade war. But some may face delays because of a lack of space on container ships, since so many suppliers here are doing the same thing.
The factory says that it's responsible for all the costs until its products reach that port. Everything else beyond that, it says, is paid for by U.S. importers as well as other American companies, including the tariffs.
For its future, in April, this factory started shipping to new customers outside of the United States.
This area used to be packed with boat awnings that would go to the United States, but all of those headed to Europe.
Unlike the American versions, these European ones, which will be used on lakes rather than the ocean, don't have a protective coating for salt water. Redesigns by a Chinese factory unsure of what comes next.
These tariff issues have become so sensitive here in China that the company that we visited didn't want to be named in our report, and the factory managers didn't want to appear on camera for an on-camera interview. Joe?
Right. Eunice, thank you so much.
Well, this morning there is a new manhunt underway after another prison break in the South. This time, a former police chief serving decades for convictions on rape and murder charges is now on the run in Arkansas. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has the latest.
Police in Arkansas on the hunt for this man, Grant Harden, a convicted murderer and rapist. Seen here, the Department of Corrections says escaping from a prison in Calico Rock Sunday through a sally port, wearing a DOC-style uniform, pulling a dolly.
He saw an opportunity and he took it.
The DOC says it's investigating how Harden got those materials and if he had help.
All it takes is, being able to find a way to get out of this area, and he can be anywhere in the state.
Investigators warn Harden, a former Arkansas police chief now serving a 30-year sentence, is considered extremely dangerous.
Whenever there's an inmate that escapes, especially someone who carries a term like he does, there's always that thought of, they really have nothing to lose.
Our thanks to Priscilla Thompson for that update. Now, the Arkansas Department of Corrections says they are still actively reviewing that surveillance footage from around the facility as part of their ongoing investigation.
To the south, overnight, police recaptured 3 more escaped inmates from that brazen New Orleans jailbreak, which took place more than a week ago. Authorities arrested Lenton Van Buren in Baton Rouge. It's about an hour from New Orleans. And a traffic stop in a county just north of Houston led to the arrests of Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald. They will now face additional charges related to the escape. As of this morning, 8 of the 10 men who escaped through a hole that was cut in the wall behind a toilet are now back in custody. But the 2 remaining fugitives are both said to be extremely dangerous. One is a convicted murderer. The other is a man who escaped from a different jail back in 2019.
Let's bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst Jim Kavanaugh for more on these manhunts. Jim, good morning. Let's start with the prison break in Arkansas that we mentioned a moment ago. This involves this former chief of police. How do you think that inmate's background in law enforcement factors into the search for him? How much harder could it make it to track him down?
Well, it does give him some advantages, but he's not Jason Bourne or anything. He's going to have some advantages because he knows police tactics and procedure. He knows how patrol shifts work, and he knows a little bit about investigations and so forth. But he's just one man with one brain, and, he has a lot of the same challenges that any fugitive or escaped prisoner has. Physics. He has to eat. He has to have transportation and shelter. I think that police experience coupled with his very violent nature, his murder that he committed on a citizen there was a very brutal crime, and he committed a brutal rape at gunpoint years before that. So he's very, very brutal guy. He's desperate, got nothing to lose, and he has that police background. So, yes, he has some advantages, but like I say, he's not Superman. He's not Jason Bourne. I think he'll be caught. Let's hope he can be caught before he hurts anybody else.
Jim, this Arkansas escape marks the second high-profile breakout in the same number of weeks. So what kind of review happens at a prison or a jail after incidents like this to make sure it doesn't happen again? We know in New Orleans, of course, there's the allegations of some inside help. But beyond that, what are some changes that could be made?
Well, they've got to tighten up. The sheriff in New Orleans will conduct a review. And in Arkansas, of course, the governor will order the director of Commissioner of Corrections to, have a review, a study, what happened, how this guy get out, what were the things we missed. And you got to tighten up. Of course, jails are always short on money, short-handed on their, corrections officers or deputies. And, citizens don't always want to spend a lot of money on jails, but it's a price we pay in society to keep very dangerous people away. And they need to review it. Really, it's a wake-up call to all jails and corrections officers to, recommit. Look at your stuff closely again. There's going to be some gaps and shortfalls. You need to see if you can shore them up. It costs a lot more money and time and effort to chase these guys down than it would be to, maybe install better locks, like in New Orleans, for example, or, change some procedures in Arkansas. Those cost money, no doubt, but in the long run, they cost a lot less. We're just lucky in New Orleans that, this one guy, he decides he's going to go to the French Quarter, where there's more cameras and cops per inch than, in Sing Sing. And, they're not always that smart. So 10 out of 12 caught, only 2 left from the New Orleans break. So let's hope they get caught pretty quick. We haven't had any reports of anybody being seriously injured by these escapees in New Orleans. So that's a blessing. That's a blessing. Let's hope these 2 more from New Orleans and his former police chief are caught in the same vein, nobody else hurt.
Jim Kavanaugh, thanks as always for your expertise here.
Memorial Day is only one day a year, but for many veterans, the battle for the benefits they've earned by serving their country goes on year-round. This morning, we've got the story of one combat veteran's fight to help fellow vets across the country. He says there's a current federal policy that actually penalizes injured veterans if they retire from military service early. It's called the Wounded Veterans Tax. Now, one senator is leading a bipartisan effort to make sure that wounded heroes get the assistance they need. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona has the details.
Army Staff Sergeant Dan Nevins was deployed to Iraq as a squad leader when an improvised explosive device detonated beneath his vehicle in 2004.
I remember everything about that day, fortunately or unfortunately.
The blast killed his platoon sergeant and took both of Nevin's legs.
The last sort of vision, if you will. And it was my 10-year-old daughter, but she was all grown up and dressed in white head to toe and walking down the aisle without her dad. And I was like, I'm alive. I have to do something to keep it that way.
After a painful and lengthy recovery, which included 36 surgeries and an 18-month stay at Walter Reed Hospital, Nevin started to live life again, even picking up new skills, like becoming a certified yoga instructor.
I was like, yoga? That, like, wrong dude. It made the nightmare stops.
When he was forced to retire from the military in 2006 because of his injuries, Nevins thought he'd be financially taken care of. But that wasn't the case.
It's a tragedy, really.
Nevins found out about the so-called Wounded Veterans Tax. Under current federal policy, some injured veterans who retire early, often not by choice, get $1 taken out of their retirement for every $1 they receive in disability pay.
I was told I could not receive both. You could either have your retirement or the VA.
Ahead of Memorial Day, Nevins traveled to Washington to advocate for a bipartisan bill that would give all veterans their full retirement and disability pay, calling on the country and Congress to honor its commitment to veterans.
We should keep our promises. I mean, I teach my kids to keep their promises, even when it's not convenient for them.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal is leading the effort.
So they're essentially being penalized financially.
They're being penalized for being wounded.
The bill would impact about 50,000 veterans, currently losing out on $1,900 a month because of the policy.
Essentially, it's about simple justice and fairness.
But the legislation is costly and comes at a time when the Trump administration is looking to trim government spending, including at the Veterans Affairs Department.
What the Doge, Musk, Trump slashing and trashing is doing to our Veterans Affairs Department is absolutely unconscionable.
A spokesman for the VA said the agency does not typically comment on pending legislation and vowed there will be no cuts to health care or benefits for veterans. The Department of Defense did not return a request for comment. Nevins now hoping his personal experience will help inspire action.
If it takes sharing a story or like digging up some uncomfortable wounds, then so be it.
Melanie Zanona, NBC News, Washington.
Well, this morning, politicians on Capitol Hill and New Yorkers are mourning the loss of former Congressman Charlie Rangel, who passed away at the age of 94 on Monday. He was known for his years in public service and deep roots in his Harlem neighborhood. He served in Congress for nearly 5 decades, representing a congressional district of majority black voters that was first drawn up in the 1940s. He actually served so long, he earned the nickname the Lion of Lenox Avenue and became one of the neighborhood's biggest champions.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, facing the music. Major music festivals being forced to scale back, even cancel altogether. How organizers are working to try and keep that industry alive.
Up first, though, after the break, desperation in Gaza as much-needed aid is allowed back into the war-torn region. The latest next. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. A new aid distribution system backed by the U.S. and Israel is up and running in Gaza this morning, delivering food aid to a region that's pushed to the brink of famine. It's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's been taking aid to those who need it in the enclave. Palestinians only started to get badly needed supplies by the truckload on Monday.
Israel argues that this new system will prevent Hamas from seizing aid supplies. But the United Nations appears skeptical of their motive, saying Israel is trying to use food as a weapon.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv with more on this. Matt, good morning. So the head of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, his name is Jake Wood. He quit on Sunday, just one day before these operations started. He says the group could not adhere to basic humanitarian principles. What more can you tell us about this new aid system and Wood's resignation, how that reflects some of the concerns we're seeing from other aid groups, including the UN?
Well, as you said, it looks as though this aid is already being distributed, in theory, by this group in the Gaza Strip. It is very much needed, but there has been so many concerns raised around this murky group, including its origins. This resignation of this Mr. Wood comes just a couple of days after the New York Times published a report in which it said that this was essentially the brainchild of the Israeli government, this organization, and that these humanitarians had been recruited in order to provide cover for an Israeli operation. Now, this is controversial. Why? Because according to international aid organizations and advocacy groups, this could mean that this group is providing cover for what some people say, for what some organizations say, is something like ethnic cleansing, the forced movement of Palestinians from the northern part of the Gaza Strip to the southern part of the Gaza Strip, presumably where they would then be able to receive aid. Now, whether or not this Mr. Wood was going to participate in that knowingly, it sounds like his resignation is backing away either from something he was not aware of or something that came out in the New York Times, or he was simply embarrassed by all the revelations and all of the reporting around his organization. I did speak with one organization that was actually filing something like a lawsuit or a complaint against this GHF's branch in Switzerland. And they said that this could mean that anybody who is involved in the GHF would be considered complicit in war crimes. So there was very good reason why this chief executive decided to back down. Whether or not this group is going to actually continue in any real way that's noticeable, that's another question we'll have to look for.
Matt, we also have some conflicting information here about a potential ceasefire. President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, told NBC News that Hamas has not agreed to a U.S. proposal for a Gaza ceasefire, despite a report from Reuters. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, he called that Reuters report nonsense to our own Garrett Haake. I mean, this was kind of whiplash we had yesterday. He said Israel is in a conversation and will agree to a temporary ceasefire or hostage deal that would see half of the living and half of the deceased hostages returned, and that would lead to a substantive negotiation to finding a path or to a permanent ceasefire. He said that's what's on the table, but he said that Hamas had disappointed him by not agreeing to this. He told this to other news organizations. And basically, he said that that Reuters report saying that Hamas had agreed was nonsense, as I just said. So, we had some conflicting reports yesterday, but we also heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who said that he could have something to say, something important to say about these hostage negotiations as soon as yesterday or today. So far, we haven't heard anything, and family members of the hostages have said that he's basically manipulating them emotionally by leaking out these sort of previews of news.
And Matt, we know tensions remain high between Israelis and Palestinians. This actually came to a head on Monday when chaos broke out during the annual flag march in the old city of Jerusalem. Walk us through what happened there.
Yeah, so this is Jerusalem Day, what you're seeing here, and every year we see these kinds of demonstrations. The day itself marks the Israeli takeover of the eastern part of the holy city of Jerusalem during the 1967 war. So this was an event where the future capital of the Palestinian state, East Jerusalem, was taken up, and a couple of years later it was annexed by the Israelis. So in the origin of this day, this is supposed to be, at best, a triumphalist march, stating the unification of Jerusalem under Israeli control. Over the past couple of decades, it's turned into an openly racist display of Jewish supremacy in Jerusalem. And just over the past couple of years, it really transformed again under this new very right-wing government into a state-backed pogrom against Palestinians in the eastern part of Jerusalem. You can see here, this is a prominent right-wing politician named Itamar Ben-Gvir. He's the head of national security here in Israel, celebrating along with these men who were essentially attacking Arabs and Palestinians in East Jerusalem, along with journalists and Israeli activists who were trying to stop them. Guys.
All right, Matt, thank you.
Well, in war-ravaged Syria, a group of former FBI agents are searching for answers, hoping to find the remains of 4 Americans kidnapped and killed by ISIS nearly a decade ago. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel met with the team on the ground for a look at their operation.
After a nearly 2-hour drive across northern Syria, the team of forensic investigators arrives at a hill on the edge of the village of Dalbeck and gets to work.
This is the intersection. This and that is this intersection right here. Right there.
They're searching the hilltop for the long missing remains of ISIS hostages, including American aid workers and journalists Kayla Mueller, Stephen Sotloff, James Foley, and Peter Kessig. For the first time, they're looking on the spot where investigators suspect ISIS may have buried them. The search is led by the Soufan Group, a private company of mostly former FBI and counterterrorism officers. They're working pro bono on behalf of the hostage families, in coordination with, but independently from, the U.S. government.
This mission is really one of the most important missions anybody can do. We're doing this for the families. We really want to make sure that the families have proper closure.
The expedition was funded and run by the Qatari government.
There is a very specific reason why this hill, this area, was so important to ISIS. This is Dalbeck, and in Islamic tradition, according to Islamic prophecies, this is Armageddon. This is where the apocalypse takes place.
ISIS propaganda spoke frequently about the importance of controlling this holy site. After bulldozing a berm, they make a grim discovery. Remains on the exact place where an ISIS executioner made a gruesome video showing the partial remains of American hostage Peter Kessig.
It's too early to tell if it is Peter, another Westerner, or a local. The good news is we did find someone. Someone is going to have closure.
Over 4 long days in the sun, they locate at least a dozen victims, now undergoing DNA analysis, as families await closure after more than a decade. Richard Engel, NBC News, Dalbeck, Syria.
Well, coming up, worries at work causing stress at home.
More Americans say today's job market is having a major impact on their mental health. When we come back in our weekly check-in, we're going to look at ways to manage that stress. This is Morning News Now.
We are back now with your weekly mental health check-in. With all the recent uncertainty around government jobs, there's been the firings, the buyout offers, or programs being shut down overnight. More than half of American workers, even those who do not work for the government, say they are stressed out about their job security.
Plus, do you get a little uncomfortable when people pay you a compliment? Well, you're not alone, and it may be a sign of something else that is going on.
For more, let's bring in licensed marriage and family therapist Dr. George James. Hi, Dr. James. Always great to have you with us. So let's talk about this 2025 Work in America survey. That's where these numbers are coming from. And it found that job insecurity is impacting 54% of American workers' stress levels. But actually, most of those people say it's tied to these government layoffs. But this is even if they work in the private sector. Dr. James, is there anything we can do when something, so out of our control is causing such a significant amount of stress?
Good morning, Savannah. And yes, many people are feeling the stressors because of some of the shifts from government jobs, but also university jobs. And so one of the things that we found that's been helpful is if that employer also focuses on mental health and creates services or support, or even if the manager relationship is good for the individual, you can make sure that you get the help that you need and also stay connected to your colleagues. This has been proven to be helpful even when there's uncertainty at your job.
All right, so we've talked here in the past about how people are becoming less social for a variety of reasons, phones being one of those reasons. Now there's fresh evidence. A new study shows the number of people who say they have no close friends. It's increased. It was 3% in the 1990s. It was 12% in 2021. Wow. So is that as ominous as it sounds? And if someone does feel like they're in that 12%, I mean, what's your best advice for them? Because all the research is telling us the importance of that connection, what it means for our mental health, even our physical health.
But Joe, yes, we've talked a lot about loneliness, and some of this is to really think about the impact of what happens when we feel like we don't have friends. Some of it is that we don't want to judge ourselves too much, because sometimes you can actually be very happy alone and be without friends. You might have lots of hobbies, you might have other things. So you want to shift how you see yourself or the stigma that might be connected to this. You want to also differentiate, am I feeling really bad because of the social pressure, or am I feeling bad because I'm not connected to people? And if so, then you can make those connections, but be okay with being by yourself.
Speaking of making friends, also, I mean, we all, I think, sometimes feel anxious, maybe awkward in a social situation. A new study, though, puts some numbers around it. It suggests that 1 in 9 adults in the U.S. experience specifically what's called social anxiety disorder at some point in their life. What are ways to tell if you're just a little nervous or if it could be something more serious?
No, Savannah, I think when we look at these signs, these are things that many of us do. So it's very normal to have some social anxiety in settings. What we want to think about is if we find this happening over and over, if we find ourselves avoiding situations, if we find ourselves doing whatever we can not to interact with other people, then maybe it's gotten a little bit too far and we might need some support or help. But if you're checking your phone, if you're finding ways to kind of get better for a social situation that is actually very normal, and you want to be able to just limit that, and so that you can stay engaged, because anxiety wants to make you say no, and you got to push forward so that you can say yes and experience that situation.
So that's interesting, because we mentioned that example and we saw it on the chart there of you don't handle a compliment very well. I mean, talk about what is going on there and what sort of the takeaway is for that.
Yeah, sometimes a compliment means like you're having to focus on yourself, and that makes you feel like maybe you're being looked at and overwhelmed, and sometimes we can reject that. But sometimes it's really important just to say thank you, or to be able to integrate that and say, yes, I really appreciate that, because that means somebody is noticing something really good about yourself, and not to ignore it or to avoid being in the spotlight.
Accept it. Joe, I like your outfit today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Dr.
Yours too.
You
I
too.
like both of you.
You look great. Dr. George James, always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Summer might be here unofficially, but we can say the sun is here officially, which means it's time to think about sunscreen again. Remember, skin cancer is the most common form of cancer in the U.S. The Skin Care Foundation says 1 in 5 people will develop it by the age of 70. Reporter Raul Martinez from NBC Boston spoke to one dermatologist who has some important reminders that will last you all summer long.
Detection is certainly one thing that we're getting better at.
Dr. Rebecca Drums is a board-certified dermatologist at Cross Dermatology in Wellesley.
I have some patients who feel like, well, I got all this exposure early in my life, in my teens and 20s, and so kind of that ship has sailed. It's not even worth wearing sunscreen or hats or protecting from the sun now, but it's really not true.
And the number of new cases of skin cancer has increased by 42%. The American Cancer Society anticipates over 104,000 new cases of melanoma will be diagnosed in 2025, and more than 8,000 will die from the cancer.
I always advise patients to keep an eye on their skin. You want to be on the lookout for spots that you think are new, spots that look different from other spots on your body.
And wear that sunscreen and pay attention to that SPF number.
Our minimum recommendation for SPF is SPF 30 or higher.
And great job if you put it on, but you still have work to do if you're outside all day.
After 2 hours, whatever sunscreen you put on is basically gone. It's not helping you. It's not protecting you anymore. So you've really got to reapply. You also want to do things like wear sun protective clothing, hats, UV protective sunglasses.
Okay, and here's one last important note from the doctor. Just because you are inside doesn't mean you are safe from the sun. Now, she says many of her patients don't realize that some of the UV rays can pass directly through the window glass. So if you're in a car or working in your office, that can also contribute to skin cancer risk and signs of aging. So make sunscreen part of your morning routine, no matter what your activity is. From the newsroom, I'm Raul Martinez.
All right, coming up, from Coachella to Couchella, more music lovers are choosing to skip out on the festival experience.
Why would I go to get all dusty in the desert and spend all that money when I can just stay home and do Coachella?
We'll explore what's behind the shift and how organizers are working to bring the crowds back. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. If you're a fan of music festivals, we might have a little bit of bad news for you. A combination of higher prices, economic uncertainty, and cultural shifts are forcing some popular festivals to cancel permanently. NBC News correspondent Adrian Broadus explains.
Once a summer staple, music festivals now facing a crisis, as dozens call it quits, saying rising production costs and low ticket sales are pushing them to cancel.
Tickets are so expensive, gas is expensive, everything's more expensive, so people are spending their money on other things or at least being more selective about it.
From Chicago's Pitchfork Music Festival shutting its doors after almost 2 decades to Rolling Loud's European leg postponing to next year. As costs rise, some festivals hike prices, like Coachella, up over 50% since the pandemic, with many buyers using payment plans to afford the $600+ ticket. Add the cost of travel, surging hotel prices, and food once you're inside, it all becoming the butt of jokes on social media.
We could always go get some food. I would, but I already spent my 401k on a hot dog earlier.
The festival fatigue, a continuation of last year's trend, which saw major shows struggle to sell out despite having huge acts. Some even calling 2024 the beginning of the end for music festivals. It's a sharp turn from the 2000s when music festivals boomed. Jordan Kurland, founder of the Bay Area's Treasure Island Festival, which shut down in 2018 after an 11-year run, says now the festival market is overcrowded.
People don't have the time or the budget to go to all the festivals that are happening.
And with the new generation comes evolving festival culture.
Gen Z is the first generation that was online basically from birth. So I wonder if the IRL experience is as important to them.
Live streaming and social media make festivals more accessible.
Why would I go to get all dusty in the desert and spend all that money and take all that time to travel and spend all that time walking all over the place when I can just stay home and do Coachella?
But even with all of the challenges, industry insiders say stick around for the encore.
Festivals aren't going away. It's now part of our culture. It's just getting harder.
The diehards will always find their way through the crowd. Adrian Broadus, NBC News.
Let's get to some money news now, starting with a major policy shift from Southwest Airlines that might ruffle flyers' feathers.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good morning. Yeah, Southwest Airlines ending its free bag policy, saying today it will charge $35 for the first bag and $45 for the second. Now, the move formalizes an announcement in March that it would halt its bags fly free rules. Southwest was the only major U.S. airline that allowed customers to check 2 bags at no cost. It will still offer free checked bags to customers with A-list preferred status and those who buy premium fares. Meanwhile, Tesla sales falling by nearly 50% in Europe last month. That is the 4th straight monthly decline, and that's as sales of all other EV brands rose by more than a quarter. Tesla has seen sales drop in Europe as car buyers shift away due to CEO Elon Musk's politics and increasing competition from Chinese rivals. Investors, however, they seem to be shrugging off these latest numbers. And Disney's live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch and Tom Cruise's death-defying stunts in the latest Mission Impossible movie, bringing crowds to theaters over the holiday weekend. That helped boost the box office in the U.S. and Canada to more than $327 million over the 4 days. That's a new record. Lilo and Stitch taking the top spot with about 60% of tickets going to people who watched the original animated film, which came out in 2002. This movie is going to get me to the movie theaters. I know. I'm going this weekend.
I love that. Thanks, Silvana.
Yeah. In Redondo Beach, California, a high school athlete wanted to help others who dreamed of playing baseball no matter where they came from, no matter their walk of life. So he created a baseball league to help them step up to the plate. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky got to test his chops in one of their games.
Go, 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 go. On a small diamond in SoCal, you'll find a field of dreams come true.
You have a home run in, Joe.
I don't know. I just swing. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the Redondo Sunset Champions League, where playing means no strikeouts, more big hits, and every batter up teaming up with their own buddy. All of it dreamt up by Matthew McCauley, who a few years back realized his favorite sport was missing something.
You're a 9th grade baseball player, and kind of what's the big idea?
The big idea? Just to do some positive good. It was really gratifying, I'd say, just to be able to see these kids, play a sport that I love.
The league inviting kids, teens, and young adults to play, tackling the game with the same tenacity they use to handle physical ailments, disabilities, or any other challenges life's thrown their way.
It's all about the player having fun. The ability doesn't really matter, because they're going to vary. The fact that the player is having fun, that's why we're here.
Proving if you build it, they will come. Matt and his dad, Chris, now coach a full lineup, and even let this retired Little Leaguer sub in. My buds, Cameron and Ryder, quick to show me the ropes.
Wait for the pitch that kind of, where the ball dips down.
Wait for the low pitch.
Yeah, that way when you swing, it scoops it up.
Home run.
Exactly.
The buddy's biggest job, encouragement, but Ryder didn't need much.
You got this, brother. Oh, let's go. Let's go. Here we go. Through the bag, through the bag. Oh, are we taking 2? We're taking 2. Nice job, man.
Come on. Double. The love of the game for both players and parents. Clear.
I can see kind of the proud dad vibes on you a little bit. Did you catch that big hit?
Yes, I did.
Give it up for Hunter! Randy Dawson's son, now a devoted Champions Leaguer.
There we go.
If they didn't have this league, then you probably wouldn't play baseball.
Really? There we go.
Fun and community. All thanks to a ball player who hopes his family's love of the game catches on.
I'm thankful for having been able to do this. It's been amazing to see the players get better.
It just makes you feel happy.
Yeah. You feel, I don't know, but it was like at home.
All right, Ryder, do it.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Champions!
Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
That is cool. There's a similar program in New Jersey called Buddy Baseball. Same concept where no one's out, everyone scores a run, everyone gets an opportunity to play along with a buddy, and you bond with other people too.
Oh, what a great story. Morgan, thanks for bringing that to us. Coming up, a debt of gratitude finally repaid to an American hero.
When we come back, the special honor for a World War II veteran from his high school. This is Morning News Now.
We are ending the hour with a story about some lost treasure. 101-year-old Robert Ryan was serving as a navigator on a B-17 bomber during World War II when he was taken prisoner in Germany.
While in captivity, Ryan was forced to trade away something precious. It's a sacrifice that has not been forgotten even more than 80 years later. Reporter Mike Bush from our St. Louis affiliate KSDK has his story.
At Alton Marquette High School, students are assembling to honor a sacrifice made long ago and discovering that even after 80 years, some debts of gratitude can still be repaid.
Oh, say, can you see?
The guest of honor, Robert Ryan, class of 1941.
So let us begin with a prayer.
Whose journey from these halls would take him to places these students can scarcely imagine.
Okay.
Even at 101 years old,
insurance policy,
Robert Ryan still reports to his downtown Alton law office each morning.
A 1099.
Having long since filed a motion to dismiss the very concept of retirement.
I hear that retirement isn't all that great. Who wants to look at television? Except for news.
Yes, except for news. But before legal briefs in courtrooms,
mutual fund report,
Ryan was fighting for our freedom high above Nazi Germany. He was a navigator on the B-17 bomber. On his 5th mission, his crew was in the crosshairs of German gunners below and fighter pilots above, and his luck ran out. Captured on German soil, Ryan would endure the remainder of the war as a prisoner, where hunger became a dangerous enemy. And one day, an opportunity for an unusual trade presented itself at the fence line.
There was a Russian there on the other side of the barbed wire, and he had a can of sardines, and I was hungry.
So Ryan traded his class ring for a tin of sardines. a moment when necessity outweighed nostalgia.
It wasn't doing me any good.
Some of the awards.
Now, decades later, the school decided history deserved a different ending.
So we are pleased to be able to give back to you today a new class ring from the class of 1941.
For the students, history stepped from the pages of a book into real life.
Well, thank you very much.
And with characteristic wit, his assessment of the replacement compared to the original?
The original ring was worth a can of sardines. This one's probably worth more. Maybe 2 cans.
In this high school gymnasium, the circle is now complete.
May God bless each of you, On Explorers. Thank you.
Proof that a ring once traded for survival now holds its worth not in carats, but in character.
It was an honor, frankly, and I appreciated it very much.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, what a story. Our thanks to KSDK's Mike Bush for sharing that with us.
Mike's a great storyteller, so I'm glad we can bring that story to you. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Hope you all had a great Memorial Day. Thanks for starting your Tuesday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, the urgent new manhunt in Arkansas for a former police chief turned convicted murderer. The cunning disguise that authorities say helped him break out from behind bars. Also this morning, the latest on that high-profile crypto kidnapping right here in New York. An Italian businessman allegedly tortured for weeks in this luxury townhouse, all police say, for his Bitcoin. The harrowing new surveillance video of his escape and the troubling new global trend that now has some security experts sounding the alarm. Plus, a Memorial Day washout ramping up the summertime stress for Americans just trying to get back home from a weekend of holiday fun. Mother Nature doling out thousands of delays at airports across the country, and millions more waking up this morning to the threat of even more severe weather. Our Angie Lastman is tracking it all to make sure you get to your final destination safely. But if you are still looking for sunnier skies this summer, well, never fear. Later in the hour, we've got some top tips on the best times to book your next vacation. There's some good deals out there for this summer if you're looking to get away. Just saying. All right, let's start this hour with a major update in the search for that group of inmates that broke out of a New Orleans jail. Authorities were able to track down 3 more of the men overnight, which means 8 of the 10 men who originally escaped a week ago have now been recaptured.
This also comes as authorities in Arkansas have launched a separate manhunt for a convicted killer who escaped a prison there by disguising himself as a guard. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has the latest.
Well, hey there, that escaped prisoner in Arkansas is a former police chief who is currently serving decades for 2 separate convictions, including rape and murder. It comes as officials in New Orleans have made major progress in their search for the group of men who pulled off that brazen jailbreak.
Overnight, investigators recapturing 3 more fugitives, more than a week after the shocking escape of 10 inmates from a New Orleans jail. Authorities arresting Lenton Van Buren about an hour away in Baton Rouge and Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald in a county just north of Houston, Texas. While 8 of the escapees are now back in custody, a convicted murderer and a man who had escaped from a different jail in 2019 are both still at large. Police also arresting several people they believe assisted the inmates. It comes as another urgent manhunt is now underway in Arkansas. Law enforcement agencies searching for a former police chief turned convicted felon who broke out of prison near the state's northern border.
We have K-9 units, we have drones, we have on foot.
56-year-old Grant Harden is serving decades-long sentences for rape and murder. The sheriff's department releasing this photo they say shows him in disguise, wearing a makeshift corrections officer uniform as he made his escape from prison on Sunday through a secured gate.
We're still looking into that, into what exactly that was made out of, how he was able to get those materials.
Did you used to be a police officer somewhere?
Harden's case, the subject of 2 true crime documentaries. Following the investigation and later arrest of the former Gateway, Arkansas police chief, he pleaded guilty to the 2017 murder of a city employee and was later tied to the rape of a school teacher in the 90s.
He was right there and nobody knew.
Now, investigators actively reviewing surveillance footage and looking into who Harden may have communicated with to determine if he had outside help. Authorities admit his law enforcement background presents a challenge.
That probably makes it a little bit trickier. At the same time, we do have some resources that he does not.
And investigators are focusing their search in Arkansas and specifically around the area of the prison, which is about an hour south of Missouri. Meanwhile, authorities in Louisiana say they have more than 200 officers working to track down the remaining 2 New Orleans fugitives. All of these escapees are believed to be dangerous, and authorities are telling the public to be vigilant. Back to you.
All right, Liz, thank you.
Strong storms across the country are creating headaches, pushing Memorial Day travel into Tuesday for some Americans who are just trying to get home. Parts of the South are underwater after a line of severe storms caused more flooding in parts of Oklahoma and Tennessee overnight. This morning, more than 7 million people from Texas to Georgia remain under the threat of severe weather. In the South could get strong winds and hail like these golf ball-sized chunks that fell near Lubbock. And for travelers who are trying to fly out today, well, the weather is expected to impact flights arriving and departing. So as they say, you better pack your patience. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is at Dallas Love Field Airport this morning. Joins us with the latest. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Yeah, Mother Nature not mixing with Memorial Day this time around. At one point yesterday, airports here in Dallas and other major hubs like Houston and Denver had the vast majority of their flights delayed as severe weather moved through. More than 7,000 flights nationwide delayed as travelers are just trying to get home from the holiday.
This morning, severe weather on the move with storms throughout the South. In Texas, blinding rain and large hail bouncing off vehicles, while some were left stranded in the floodwaters and the night sky lit up as a massive dust storm hit other parts of the state. Heavy rain also pummeling Mississippi and Oklahoma, leaving some roads impassable. And in New Mexico, they're assessing the damage after this tornado churned through a field. The weather also causing headaches at airports across the country, with more than 7,000 flight delays and nearly 400 cancellations on Monday alone.
I'm scared. I'm not going to lie to you.
When's your flight?
It was supposed to be 3:15, and now it is 4:10.
Thunderstorms forcing a ground stop in Denver, and a plane flying there even struck by lightning over the weekend. While flights at Dallas-Fort Worth set back by a string of storms, adding more stress to weary travelers desperate to get home.
It looked very long because it loops all the way around and back.
What'd you think when you walked up here and saw this long line?
It's a bit stressful.
The TSA says they screened over 3 million people on Friday, the 3rd busiest day of all time. And it seems there's more to come, as another 7 million people are waking up today under a severe weather threat.
Yeah, some 18 million people expected to be screened by the TSA through last night. I'll tell you, the lines are looking pretty good here. If there is any silver lining, it looks like here in Dallas, at least, we're through the worst. But as those storms move east, we are on standby waiting for more travel delays that could be possible later today, guys.
All right, Ryan, thank you.
Let's get more info on what to expect with your Morning News Now weather.
Angie Lastman is here at the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning to you. Things already ramping up along the Gulf Coast, parts of the South waking up under these thunderstorm watches. You can see some of those lasting until 1 p.m. We've also got some thunderstorm warnings as this line kind of works its way to the east across parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. New Orleans to Jackson included in that thunderstorm watch. And again, that's going to go through at least the early afternoon hours, but waking up to wet weather across parts of East Texas. And we've kind of got more where all of that came from over the weekend. We're going to once again be dealing with similar kinds of setups across the country. So first, we've got to see some of this rain working across parts of the east, but then here's in the afternoon and evening hours, we'll see the potential for some of those stronger storms to really fire up late into the day, specifically late afternoon into early evening. Here's the spots you'll want to watch across areas from Mississippi to Georgia, as well as Texas and New Mexico. We'll have the chance to see that large hail, the strong wind gusts, and maybe even a tornado or two. Specifically, Midland, Fort Stockton, stretching down to San Antonio has the potential for that large hail, 2 inches and larger. As we get into tomorrow, the system still is working its way to the east, so we've kind of got a mess in a couple of spots. It's the mid-Atlantic to the Great Lakes that deals with that heavy rain, so maybe some localized flooding possible. And then across the south, it's again that severe risk, and again a potential for maybe some flooding there as well. well. The severe risk for tomorrow, much smaller, parts of New Mexico and Texas included in that. And the hail, damaging winds are the main threats. Tornado risk will be low, so that's some good news for tomorrow. But first, we got to get through the chance for severe weather today and the potential for some flooding. Here's the big picture look of your flash flooding. Notice where you see the blue on the map. That's where we have that slight risk, so potentially seeing that be an issue here as the day goes on. We've got pretty saturated grounds and more rain to come here as we get through the next few days. So through Thursday, guys, we could pick up another 1 to 3 inches. That'll be, once we finally get through these next couple of days, it'll be an improvement for some of those areas that have just been dealing with kind of difficult Memorial Day weekend weather.
They could use some relief.
They sure
do. We need it to feel like summer.
I know.
It started.
I'm trying.
Thanks, Angie.
You got it.
A lot of news coming out of the White House this morning. President Trump is taking his feud with Harvard University to another level, now threatening to cut all remaining ties to the university. Well, overseas, Russia and Ukraine are responding to Mr. Trump's remarks that Russian President Putin is, quote, absolutely crazy following attacks on Ukraine over the weekend. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake is live at the White House with all this. Garrett, good morning.
Joe, as often the case, it's been a busy morning here already. The administration is now following up this morning on President Trump's recent social media threat to strip Harvard University of grant funding. A senior administration official tells me now that all federal agencies are being instructed today to end any contract they can find with the university and shift that money elsewhere. And amid this rhetorical war at home, the president's frustration over his inability to end Russia's war with Ukraine is now also spilling out into public view. With just 2 days to go until Harvard University's commencement, President Trump hammering away on social media at the school and its students. The president threatening Monday to take away $3 billion in grant money for medical and scientific research from what he calls a, quote, very anti-Semitic Harvard. Harvard has said it, quote, rejects anti-Semitism and discrimination. Trump saying he's considering giving the money to trade schools instead.
Which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard.
Last week, the Trump administration barring Harvard from accepting any future foreign students. Trump also demanding a list of all international students so the administration can find radicalized lunatics and troublemakers, even though the government already has such a list through visa applications. Harvard has sued the government to block the order. The university's president describing the Trump administration's actions as retaliation for, quote, our refusal to surrender our academic independence. While the president also conducting foreign policy online. Now, Russia and Ukraine responding after Trump's post calling Russian President Vladimir Putin, quote, absolutely crazy over the weekend. As Russia launched more attacks amid one of its fiercest weeks of strikes. The Kremlin responding yesterday that it is, quote, a very crucial moment, which goes hand in hand with an emotional overload of absolutely everyone and with emotional reactions. The president also saying he'd consider sanctions against Putin.
What the hell happened to him, right? He's killing a lot of people.
This morning, Russia saying that would kill any peace talks, which the Trump administration has been pushing for, including in a 2-hour phone call with the president and Putin last week. This morning, Ukrainian President Zelensky, whom Trump had also criticized, calling for U.S. sanctions and saying, quote, Putin must start respecting those he talks to. And turning back now to Harvard, the university has not yet commented on the administration's latest moves, but its attorneys will speak in court on Thursday. That's when a federal judge will hear arguments about whether to extend his temporary order continuing to allow foreign students to enroll at the school while this most recent lawsuit plays out. Joe?
All right, Garrett, thank you so much.
Well, now let's get to the latest on that crypto kidnapping here in New York. We now have video of the alleged victim who tells authorities he was tortured for weeks in an attempt to steal his Bitcoin.
NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda joins us now with the latest. Emily, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning to you. After 17 days in captivity, prosecutors say the alleged victim was bloody, traumatized, and covered in cuts. Surveillance cameras capturing the moment he ran up barefoot to a traffic agent for help, marking the end of a harrowing ordeal.
This morning, a first look at the Italian businessman and alleged kidnapping victim running barefoot and flagging an officer for help, an exclusive video obtained by WNBC. The unidentified victim, appearing to carry a bag and another item, escaped this luxury New York City townhouse where prosecutors say he was electrocuted, pistol whipped, and held captive for weeks in a shocking scheme to steal his Bitcoin. According to a bail application, the 28-year-old was finally able to escape Friday by promising to provide the defendant with his Bitcoin password contained on his laptop. When the defendant left the victim to retrieve the victim's laptop, the victim was able to escape down the stairs.
John, did you kidnap that tourist?
Crypto millionaire John Waltz was arrested Friday and now faces numerous charges, including assault and kidnapping. Law enforcement sources say an accomplice who has not been publicly identified is expected to turn himself in this week. Both had been in business for years with the alleged victim, whose net worth is around $30 million, as cryptocurrencies have surged in value in recent months. Bitcoin up nearly 60% over last year. A motivating factor, security experts say, for criminals.
There's less guardrails on moving crypto than there is cash and wire transfers. So I think in the crypto world, you're going to have to start looking at some of the same safeguards that we have in the regular banking and wire world.
Brazen attacks on crypto entrepreneurs have been popping up around the world.
I'm really concerned.
Crypto regulation expert Alexander Amanino says he started avoiding industry gatherings and varying his commute after a series of violent incidents in France. After a mass group was caught on camera in Paris trying to abduct the daughter of a French crypto executive earlier this month.
Just the fact of being in the crypto ecosystem puts you a target in the back.
Oh, Emily, lots of new details there in that video. So the alleged victim we know is from Italy. Do we know what he was doing here in the U.S.? Because it's interesting that they obviously do have this working relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point. So court documents show that John Waltz and the alleged accomplice allegedly lured the victim from Italy to New York City to that townhouse, promising that they would return some of the Bitcoin that they had already taken. Waltz, by the way, is expected to be back in court tomorrow. Prosecutors have called him a flight risk. He has $100 million of net worth. He has a private plane, a helicopter, out-of-state ties, so a lot to watch for this week.
Oh, wow. Emily, thank you so much.
In South Texas this morning, SpaceX is counting down the hours to another attempted launch of its massive spaceship rocket. It is the 9th test flight of the world's largest rocket, following 2 fiery failures earlier this year. Now, its success is critical to Elon Musk's goal of sending an uncrewed mission to Mars next year, and his bigger dream of sending a human mission to the moon and Mars someday in the future. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has the latest.
Yeah, that's right. So before Starship's 9th test flight, CEO Elon Musk will be speaking about his plans for establishing a permanent settlement and cities on Mars. While back here on Earth, the question really is whether Starship can overcome the technical challenges that have plagued the last 2 launches. In South Texas, SpaceX's hopes and dreams are this morning sitting on the launch pad with its massive Starship poised for another launch attempt this evening. After 2 previous uncrewed flights, both ended with spectacular explosions.
What is that, like a meteor shower?
In March, just minutes into test flight 8.
There it is. Boom. Oh, my God.
The world's largest rocket spun out of control and broke into 1 million pieces. Fiery debris visible across Florida and parts of the Caribbean. Commercial air travel disrupted, with the FAA diverting planes and grounding aircraft for nearly an hour. Elon Musk posted afterwards, "Rockets are hard." Now the FAA has cleared Starship's return to the pad, writing it's conducted a comprehensive safety review of the Flight 8 mishap and determined the company has satisfactorily addressed the causes of the mishap. But this time, the FAA is expanding the size of the hazard areas, both in the U.S. and other nearby countries. In January, the explosion of Test Flight 7 rained debris across the islands of the Turks and Caicos. Since then, SpaceX says several hundred hardware changes have been made to increase reliability. If all goes well, this Test Flight 9 could mark a breakthrough for SpaceX as it attempts to reuse a Super Heavy rocket booster for the first time. SpaceX is hoping to send Starship on an uncrewed mission to Mars perhaps next year, with crewed flights eventually to the moon and Mars. Elon Musk recently opened up to Bloomberg Television about his vision for the Starship program.
Getting Starship to be fully reusable so that we catch both the booster and the ship would be a profound breakthrough, as the essential breakthrough necessarily to make life multiplanetary.
Yeah, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk recently received FAA approval to increase Starship launch operations in South Texas from 5 to 25 launches per year. The launch window will open this evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll be watching it, of course. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. For more analysis, let's bring in former NASA astronaut and International Space Station Commander Terry Virts. Terry, good to have you with us. So this is SpaceX's third launch of the year. If everything does go according to plan, then what would this mission look like?
Well, first of all, it'll be an amazing launch. It's a massive rocket, the largest one ever built. They're not going to try and return that first stage. Remember the big chopsticks that caught this massive booster? They're going to do a quote-unquote landing. It's going to be a soft landing where it just crashes into the Gulf of Mexico. But for test objectives, and then the upper stage will hopefully make it into orbit and deploy some Starship satellites, which is really one of the most important parts of this Starlink satellites, of the Starship, because Starlink, the satellite internet company, needs this massive rocket to be able to launch hundreds of satellites. So that's definitely something that the company's very interested in.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that there, the connection, in just a moment. But first, one of the big things here, this ability to reuse the two pieces here. One's called the Super Heavy booster, and then also the spacecraft. That would be revolutionary. Tell us why that would be such a step forward, and if it's something that you're excited about.
Yeah, well, this is something Blue Origin's doing it with its rockets. Of course, Falcon 9, SpaceX does it with the Falcon 9 rocket, which is the most used rocket in the world. But this is a different level. It's just so much bigger. And what reuse does is it allows you to save money. So you don't have to buy an entire new rocket every time. You can refurbish the engines and use them. So it's really a question of money when you can reuse it. And they also eventually would like to reuse the upper stage, which is really amazing. The first stage goes roughly 5 times the speed of sound. So it's a big effort to get that big thing to come back to the launch pad. But the upper stage is going 25 times the speed of sound. So to have that thing come back to Earth is a much more difficult effort. But if they can do it, that'll bring down costs, and costs are a big part of getting into space, maybe the biggest part of getting into space.
Yeah, so there's no crew on this mission, but we have seen a lot of debris during these test flights 7 and 8. What are the biggest safety concerns here?
Well, I think the biggest concern is there's so many engines, and this thing is so big that so much has to go right. And it's hard to say exactly what went wrong on the last time. SpaceX thinks they know, but there's all these different rocket engines and everything has to work right. So if there's a leak of propellant or fuel, it explodes. It's a rocket. So the bottom line is that a lot of things have to go right. And SpaceX, luckily, is able to launch a lot of these rockets, so they get a lot of data points, which is what you need during any test program.
Terry, SpaceX, of course, is Elon Musk's company, and he's also heading a government agency. How does that impact things here?
Well, just to be perfectly straight about it, I think it's a conflict of interest unlike we've never seen before. Elon Musk gave Trump hundreds of millions of dollars to help him get elected. Then he was put in charge basically of the entire government, given insight into all government contracts, and also now being given billions of dollars of government contracts. And beyond that, he was very involved in the FAA, which, by the way, the FAA now wants to buy Starlink services. And he helped lay off, tens of thousands of government workers. So the conflict of interest here, I think, is unlike anything we've ever seen in American history. Now, SpaceX is an amazing company. They've done amazing things. But the bottom line is the Elon Musk's contribution to the president, and then benefits that he's getting from the president, potentially tens of billions of dollars worth of military and NASA contracts. And also he's helped install the NASA administrator. So it's just something that's really unprecedented.
Terry Virts, we appreciate your time and your expertise this morning. We know you'll be watching later on.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
There's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now. A little later, we're going to dig into the global reaction to an incident involving French President Emmanuel Macron as he touched down in Vietnam over the weekend.
First, after the break, Britain standing with Liverpool after that car ramming tragedy yesterday, casting a dour shadow over the city's Premier League win. Why police say they're not calling it terrorism. That is next. Welcome back. This morning, Britain's Prime Minister is praising first responders, saying the country stands with Liverpool in the wake of Monday's shocking car ramming that left dozens of people injured. Hundreds of thousands of soccer fans took to the streets yesterday to witness Liverpool's Premier League victory parade before a car plowed through a section of the crowd. Police say they arrested a 53-year-old white British man who they believe was the driver of the vehicle. Police also said they're not treating it as a terror-related incident. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez has the latest from Liverpool and a warning: some images in this report might be disturbing.
Hey there, yeah, just yesterday there was a joyful championship parade coming down the street. Now you can see it is a major crime scene. Just behind that large police vehicle, detectives are examining the dark minivan that came crashing into the crowd here, injuring nearly 50 people, including several children. This morning, a major investigation underway after this minivan plowed into a crowd of soccer fans at a championship parade, leaving behind a trail of horror and pain.
The crews were met with numerous injured people and 4 persons trapped under a vehicle.
Authorities say nearly 50 people were injured, including 4 children. One of those children trapped beneath the van. But miraculously, no one was killed. The driver now under arrest. Police say he's a 53-year-old white man from the Liverpool area. The motive still unclear.
We believe this to be an isolated incident. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
Tens of thousands had turned out to celebrate Liverpool's victory in the English Premier League. Footage taken just before the crash appears to show a confrontation between the driver and some of the fans. And then, shortly after 6 p.m., the minivan careening into the crowd.
All of a sudden, we just heard screams and a horn beeping. If we hadn't have heard the horn and looked up at that minute, it would have hit us. We seen a sea of people chasing it, trying to smash the windows, trying to get to stop.
Fans surrounding the vehicle after it came to a halt. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying,
"My thoughts and the thoughts of the whole country will be with everybody in Liverpool today."
Now a race to find answers on how a day of sporting celebration was darkened by tragedy. And we are hearing just an outpouring of support from across the world of sports, including from LeBron James, who's actually a part owner of Liverpool. He posted on X, "My deepest thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected that attended Liverpool Premier League trophy parade. Such a senseless act." And I can tell you the anthem of Liverpool Soccer Club is "You'll never walk alone." And there is a real feeling in this city right now that people are supporting each other through this tragedy. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Raf, thank you.
Well, French President Emmanuel Macron is facing pushback quite literally after an official visit in Vietnam.
Yeah, video from the president's arrival in Hanoi on Sunday shows someone pushing him in the face moments after landing. Macron then disembarked from the plane with his wife, Brigitte, by his side. The First Lady was wearing a red coat that matches the arm that pushed him. So now the president's office trying to downplay the incident.
NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter joins us from London with more on this. Molly, good morning. So Joe just really laid it out there, but walk us through what we know about what happened here and how the president's responding.
That was some good forensics in your intro from both of you guys. Look, 2 things are true in all relationships, right? We don't actually know what happens in relationships if you're not in them. The second one is we all disagree with our partners, and we all have that kind of maybe physical language that other people may not understand. With that said, watching this video, this certainly appears like some sort of altercation. You guys just laid it out. And it was shot by the Associated Press. I'm just going to walk you through kind of the immediate response from the Élysée Palace. Originally, they said, it's fake. That didn't happen. Then obviously they had to backtrack. This is, of course, a reputable video. And President Macron was asked about it. He said it was nothing. He said it's nonsense. He said they were joking. They were squabbling. And the Élysée Palace then also said, look, it's real. They were having a laugh, and they called it a moment of closeness. I'm going to leave it up to our audience to decide whether or not kind of that is what you are watching right now is how you would define a moment of closeness. I couldn't possibly make a judgment. I will say, though, President Macron really trying to get the focus back on his trip. This is the first leg for a Eastern Asian trip, and he really wants people to be talking about why he's there, not about this.
The immediate acknowledgement that the door was open and that he just immediately waved. It was politician mode just like snapped right into place right there, Molly. Let's talk about the visit. It's, as you mentioned, sort of a 5-day tour of Southeast Asia. What is the aim of this visit, and what else can you tell us about the trip?
Yeah, Joe, we should give him some credit for kind of immediately regaining composure, realizing there was a huge crowd of reporters at the bottom of the stairs. And I also like how the flight attendant kind of comes into view very, very quickly. But this is the beginning of a Southeastern Asian leg. He is pitching France, you guys, as a reliable trade partner to Vietnam, especially as an alternative to China, and the U.S. Today, he's at the University of Hanoi, and then he goes on to Jakarta. Tonight, he'll be in Indonesia and Singapore. And this is a big deal, and he certainly wants people to be talking about the trip and not whatever this was at the top of those stairs.
Molly Hunter, thank you very much for your reporting on this one.
We'll CSI there. All right. More international headlines now, starting with U.S. envoy Witkoff denying reports of an Israel-Hamas ceasefire agreement.
Yeah, NBC's Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome with that and more. Claudio, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Well, that's right. According to Reuters on Monday, a Palestinian official said that Hamas had accepted the hostage release and ceasefire deal for Gaza drafted by the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. But both Witkoff and an Israeli official claim the report is not accurate. Witkoff told NBC News he denies there is a Witkoff proposal per se and called the report by Reuters nonsense and Hamas spin. And let's go to Ukraine, where, according to officials on Monday, Russia launched its biggest drone attack since the start of the war. The attack is part of an escalating bombing campaign that has pounded Ukraine for the past few days, leading President Trump to say that Vladimir Putin had gone crazy. Meanwhile, Germany's new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said that Germany, Britain and France dropped restrictions for the weapons they delivered to Ukraine, meaning they can now be used to hit targets inside Russia. Let's go to Britain for the cheesiest competition in the world. Once again, as every year at the end of May, hundreds of people took part in the annual cheese rolling competition. They rolled down and sometimes plunged for about 200 yards down a steep hill, chasing a wheel of double Gloucester cheese. It's a tradition that goes back at least 2 centuries, and it's just as dangerous as it looks. Competitors often end up with twisted ankles, broken collarbones and concussions, but hey, Joe, Savannah, people seem to love it, and they just roll with it. Back to you guys.
Can't they move it to like winter when like there's snow at least, or I don't know.
That is intense looking.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Their choice. All right. Coming up, another eruption on Hawaii's Big Island.
Yeah, after the break, what Kilauea's latest bout of volcanic activity might tell us about Mother Earth in 2025. We'll take a closer look next.
We're back now with a closer look at one of the world's most active volcanoes.
It's Hawaii's Kilauea volcano, and it had its 3rd eruption episode of this current eruption cycle. On Sunday, it spewed lava more than 1,000 feet into the air, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. This current eruption began on December 23rd, 2024.
Here to talk more about this is Dr. Bradley Pitcher, an expert at the University of Delaware. Good to have you with us. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about this latest eruption episode. How big was it compared with previous episodes? How long did it last?
Yeah, good morning. So this was actually the 23rd eruption that has occurred since December 23rd of last year. And this one was a particularly amazing show. There was what we call a fire fountain, or a fountain of lava that sprayed up to 1,000 feet up into the air. And this occurred actually for only about 6 hours. And there were, you can see from this video here, there were dual fire fountains going off. One of them reaching 1,000 feet, and then the episode quickly stopped around 10:30 local time in Hawaii.
Can you explain like this rhythm, how this happens, that it's like eruptions over time, but over the course of months in these episodes? Like you said, this one being its 23rd this time around. I mean, is it possible to predict when the next one happens, or how long this whole eruption cycle ultimately lasts?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is what makes this particular eruption so exciting, is that this is an episodic fire fountaining eruption. So we can see that there are these big, fire fountain eruptions that occur for several hours, and then it takes about a several day to 1 week break, and then you get another eruption. And so it's pretty spectacular that it's occurring in this sort of episodic nature. And we can actually predict approximately when the next eruption will occur because U.S. Geological Survey scientists in Hawaii, the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, they pay attention to certain warning signs of magma moving. And one of those is as magma moves, it breaks rocks, creating earthquakes. It also releases gases like sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. But the critical piece of data that the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory has been using is that as magma moves into the volcano, it actually causes the volcano to inflate and tilt upwards. And so they've been able to witness that just before an eruption, the volcano kind of starts to inflate, and then you get this fire fountaining eruption for several hours, and then it deflates as all of that magma is released into the air. And then it starts to inflate again.
So, Doctor, I know people who live in the vicinity of Kilauea knows this comes with the territory. Is there any reason to be worried or concerned about this eruption at all? Even those flying over it, is there a worry about ash in the air?
Yeah, it's a great question. So with this particular eruption, no, there's really not a lot of worry, not a lot of danger or hazards posed to the people nearby because this eruption is occurring within the summit caldera of Halimau. And because of that, the fire fountains go off, and then the lava that is produced is retained inside of this essentially bathtub at the top of the volcano. So no need to worry about lava flowing downhill towards anyone living in that area. Now, when these fire fountains go off, it produces something called Pele's hair. And so that is little strings of hardened lava, and that can be lofted by the wind. And if breathed in, that can be pretty hazardous to one's health, although mostly that sticks to sort of the summit area. The big danger is that this volcano does produce a lot of sulfur dioxide, and that sulfur dioxide can get up into the air and produce something called VOG, or volcanic fog. And when you breathe that in, that can be very irritating to one's respiratory system and your eyes. It can also mix with water, and when it gets on plants, it can cause essentially acid degradation of leaves. And so it can actually cause some issues for people downwind in terms of agriculture.
So just watch it on camera like we are right now. All right, Dr. Bradley Pitcher, good to have you with us. Appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah.
Great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Fascinating combo. Coming up, if you're still looking for that perfect summer getaway on the heels of Memorial Day weekend, well, you are in luck.
Turns out it's not too late to book that trip for some fun in the sun, but where can you score the best deals? We're watching your wallet next.
We are back with a look ahead to the busy summer travel season. A recent survey found that more than 70% of Americans plan to vacation this summer.
But roughly half of those looking to travel have yet to book their trip. So is it too late to plan that summer getaway, and where could we score the best deals?
Our friend, business and data correspondent Brian Chung is here with everything you need to know today. He's our travel expert.
It's not too late, guys. It's not too late.
Okay, tell us the deals. Where should we be going? Where can we get them?
Yeah, so look, we just passed Memorial Day weekend, but for people that are still trying to figure out if they want to try to hit the skies later on this summer, there are still some really good fares out there. Take a look at some of these things that our business team found. New York City to Charleston, Chicago to Nashville, both round trip under $100.
Wow.
Those are great weekend trips. Dallas to San Juan, $163. And you can even go international, Miami to Rome, $440 round trip. And I know a lot of people are wondering, wait, why would fares be coming down? Well, the trend appears to be that Americans that are a little bit concerned about the impact of tariffs, they're worried about budgeting for everything else that could get more expensive. Well, where do you start to make cuts on your vacations? Maybe you start to downgrade from an international trip to maybe a road trip because gas prices are down 40 cents compared to a year ago. But this is vetted out by the data. Hopper says that the average domestic round trip ticket is $265 round trip. That is cheaper than they've seen in the last few years.
Wow. So that begs the question, is there a specific time within summer that is best to travel? What should you be looking at?
Yeah, well, Expedia does track the prices, and they say that historically the best times to travel in terms of fare, but also for crowdedness, is actually late late August. That's a thinner time to travel during the summer, but the busiest and also most expensive is going to be in the next few weeks. It's early to mid-June. So even though you are seeing airfares kind of down across the board, it does depend, of course, on when you're looking. Wednesday and Saturday bookings are usually the cheapest. Sundays tend to be most expensive.
Mid-June is a miserable time to be at the airport. Absolutely just.
No, it is still
it's
packed.
The busiest time.
And that
of
is
the entire
I was just
year.
at an airport, and it was crazy busy.
Yeah.
Lines for everything. It was a lot. Okay, while you're wearing your travel expert hat for us today, Southwest has some news.
Yes.
What is this?
So effective tomorrow, that bags fly free policy that they've had basically forever, it will no longer be a thing. So if you buy a ticket on Southwest today, even if that flight is going to be later on this year, you will get the bags flying free. However, effective tomorrow, you will, according to the Wall Street Journal, have to pay $35 for the first bag, $45 for the second checked bag. Those are some hefty fees. Those will apply to the basic, Want to Getaway Plus, and the Anytime fares. Those are the most popular fares for Southwest. If you have the credit card, you won't have to pay those bag fees. But again, this is a big change for an airline that's iconic for its bag policy. And there's another change that's expected later on this year with the seat assignment. So again, Southwest, you could just seat yourself. Now effective later on this year for tickets that are going to begin in 2026, as we understand, you will have to have a seat assignment. So it seems like Southwest going by the way of all the airliners as, again, this kind of consolidation in the space kind of comes together.
I'll miss the days, because I used to fly Southwest a lot when I lived on the West Coast. Well, there's that.
When you're A1.
There's
A1
that.
of
But more than that
huge
is
flex.
seeing the person who's clearly never flown Southwest before, and they get on the plane, and they have their ticket, and they're trying to figure out where B27 is on the airplane, and they have no clue how it works.
I will say I enjoyed the social anxiety of having to go up to the person even at the gate and just like, are you B27? Oh, okay,
Oh my gosh.
B20, I'm right behind you. Right.
Up,
It's
that is
meant
like
to spark conversation. Get to know everyone
that's the
who's gonna be on
last
your
thing
plane.
I want at LaGuardia Airport.
Yeah, and people are like standoffish about it because they think I don't like any of that. All right, Brian.
Goodbye to all that. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brian.
All right, we've got more financial headlines for you. President Trump's media company might be gearing up for a major move into crypto.
CNBC's Savannah now has that and some other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Good morning to you. Yeah, so President Trump's media company plans to raise $3 billion to buy cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. The Financial Times reports Trump Media and Technology, which is behind Truth Social, the Truth Social app, and is controlled by the president and his family, could announce the fundraising ahead of a big meeting of crypto investors and industry players in Las Vegas this week. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance and the president's sons, Don Jr. and Eric, are expected to speak at the event. Trump media dismissing the report, while the White House declined comment. Meanwhile, well, diamonds may not be forever or a girl's best friend, especially with the tariffs in the way. The precious gem is facing a baseline 10% tariff on imports to the U.S., which accounts for more than half of the global demand for polished diamonds. Stones often cross several borders before ending up in stores, from mines in Africa to trading hubs in the Middle East, in Europe, and then to jewelry makers. Raw materials such as gold and silver are excluded from U.S. tariffs, and the diamond industry is lobbying for the same treatment. And all right, guys, mark your calendar. National Hamburger Day is tomorrow, and there are deals galore to chomp down on. Burger King is offering a free hamburger with a purchase of $1 or more to members of its Royal Perks program. Wendy's has a one-set junior bacon cheeseburger deal with any purchase through the app. At Dairy Queen, you can get a signature stack burger for just 99 cents with the purchase of another one from now through June 1st, guys. Get your burger deals.
All right, giving us a heads up. I appreciate that.
You got
Prepare
it.
for Burger Day.
Yeah.
Get the plan together.
Thanks a lot.
In other business news, Hollywood is celebrating after breaking Memorial Day weekend box office records.
Industry experts predict theaters made more than $325 million this holiday weekend. That breaks the last record that was set way back in 2013. Well, Disney's live-action remake, Lilo and Stitch, was the king of the crop. It became the highest-grossing Memorial Day weekend opening film ever.
Entertainment journalist, pop culture expert, and friend of the show, Brian Balthazar, joins us now to break down some of these numbers and what it could mean a good start to the summer season for theaters everywhere. Walk us through what we saw this weekend here, Brian.
Yeah, it was a real dream Hollywood weekend. And by the way, I love seeing my dream morning team back together. Love seeing the band back together. Okay, we talk a lot about Disney animated films becoming remakes in live action, and they've had mixed success. But Lilo and Stitch, well, look at the numbers right there, 183 million. And that's just domestically, 341 million worldwide. And of course, Tom Cruise has the magic touch, not only in this country, but worldwide. Tom Cruise getting 77 million in this country, 204 million worldwide. So this is a huge success. And we're so used to talking about pre-pandemic levels. Oh, we're not above pre-pandemic levels. This weekend, we're happy to say we have beaten pre-pandemic levels. That last record of back in 2013. I'm sorry, I got that number that number wrong. Yeah, 2013, 314 million at that time. We're well above that now. So this is a really good sign for Hollywood and movie making. But can we keep that momentum going through the summer is the big question.
You know what my big question is how the heck is there still momentum around Final Destination movies? Right. I cannot believe that.
People like to watch people die.
What is up with that? Okay, no thank you. Brian, why is Memorial Day like such this big, busy weekend for movie theaters? Why is that when people want to head to it? And do you think that this means that theater going is going to be strong throughout the summer?
Well, there's something about that 3-day weekend, you know, when you have just 2 days in your weekend, sometimes spending a few hours in a dark theater during one of the most beautiful times of the year is a tough sell. So that 3-day weekend coupled with a lot of places getting rain is a big selling point. But, you know, there was a point back when film release plans were scheduled that this did well, and Hollywood loves to build upon success. And while we talk about that, we want to build upon success. Well, Disney's thinking, well, good, our remakes, our live action remakes are a good plan. They have 7 or 8 more of them to go. But really, the Lilo and Stitch one, they started that years ago. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, they started that years ago. So they can't just say, hey, let's make another one of those really quickly. So what we can look ahead to is what they think will be the blockbusters this summer. We have Superman Legacy coming out July 11th. With David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan. But that has a new Superman, so that could go either way. We also have Jurassic World Rebirth with Scarlett Johansson and Jonathan Bailey. Another proven success. You know, Hollywood, again, loves to repeat successes, and we kind of know why is anyone going to this island anymore, really? It always runs off the rails. It's fun to see what happens, how that chaos unfolds and how they get ahead of it. And then we have Karate Kid Legends coming up even more soon. Again, we love sequels in Hollywood. Sometimes the viewers, though, they have mixed feelings about seeing the same old thing. So it remains to be seen if this summer can keep that that momentum going.
It's got to be good, and it's got to have good reviews these days in order for those movies to really stick. Brian, are you surprised Lilo and Stitch walloped Mission Impossible so much at the bottom? I did not see that one coming.
A little bit, although if we play the clip from last Friday when we spoke, you and I, we predicted this was going to be about 185. And I have to say, even when I was saying it last week, I was like, is that right? Is that right? It speaks to the fact that these predictions are very accurate. They knew it was going to get about 185 million based on the competition, based on all sorts of things. So I still am a little surprised. And honestly, I will say in the long haul, Tom Cruise worldwide will probably supersede that. Yeah. But, you know, this is his last one. I bet he's getting an offer today. So how about we do the Final Reckoning Part 3? I just think, you know, they're going to make him an offer.
There you go. And now Tom Cruise wants to bring Les Grossman back from Tropic Thunder. He says he wants to make a movie about that.
Right. So. His next film is an ensemble comedy. So if you want to see Tom Cruise in an action film, we're going to have to wait a little while.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate
that was fun.
it. Good to see you. Coming up, we are marking the 50th anniversary of Jaws by diving into the Atlantic head first.
After the break, one man's historic journey around Martha's Vineyard. It's all for a good cause, though. Stay with us. We'll explain up next. Welcome back. This summer marks 50 years since director Steven Spielberg terrified audiences with an instant Hollywood classic.
A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything.
Of course, we're talking about Jaws, the film about a man-eating great white shark. It went on to win 3 Academy Awards and left a lasting impression on beachgoers for decades to come.
Fast forward to yesterday when endurance swimmer Lewis Pugh became the first swimmer to circumnavigate the island of Martha's Vineyard where Jaws was shot. He used his 60-mile trek over 12 days to raise awareness about the plight of sharks.
Lewis Pugh is the United Nations patron of the oceans, and he joins us now to talk all about this epic swim. Lewis, good morning. We are so impressed. I had to read the story a couple times to like fully make sure I was getting this correctly. And I know you said that this was one of the most difficult endurance swims that you've done, which says a lot because just so our audience knows, you were also the first person to swim across the North Pole. Tell us about the experience and how you train for it.
Thank you so much. Yes, it really did turn out to be quite an epic ordeal. It had so many different factors, but the one which really made it tough was the endless winds which we had for a period of 12 days. And they brought the waves. So the water is cold, it's just above 50 degrees, waves, winds. And then you've also got what's underneath you. And that's a big factor.
Let's talk about it. I mean, it is the start of shark migration season. Just what are the biggest safety concerns you have about what is beneath the water and how do you handle that?
So mentally, it's really tough because, we know that there are sharks there. Cape Cod has become a global hotspot for great white sharks, which is absolutely fantastic. But when you're swimming there, it can be really mentally exhausting for day after day, getting in the water, knowing they're sharks. I didn't see any, but I know that they were underneath us.
So let's talk about why you did this in the first place. I mean, it was related to these animals. Over the last 50 years, the global shark population has suffered this massive, a 70% decline, and it's mostly from commercial fishing. You've said that this decimation of sharks amounts to an ecocide. Tell us what that means, what you want people to know about the problem and what can be done about it.
Thank you so much. I mean, the statistics are just so deeply shocking. On average, globally, 274,000 sharks are killed every single day. I mean, it's a number which is so difficult to get your mind around. 274,000 killed every single day. You multiply that over a whole year, it's over 100 million sharks killed every single year. If that's not an ecocide, I don't know what is. It is pushing these animals to the edge of extinction, and they are so important. They're so magnificent, they're so important, they're essential for life in our oceans, and we need to really focus on protecting them now.
And Steven Spielberg has even expressed some sense of guilt, worried that the movie Jaws even helped increase commercial fishing. And so it's so important to raise awareness about this. You are the UN's patron of the oceans. And that is to be a voice for the world's oceans. What are people still getting wrong about sharks?
Well, I mean, what the movie did was it portrayed them as cold-blooded villains out to get us. They are nothing of the sort. They actually bring life to our oceans. So as an apex predator, they keep the ocean in balance. We take them all out, we literally will have an ecosystem collapse. We'll just have a watery desert. And so my message has been that we need to educate ourselves about these sharks. They are so magnificent. They've been around since before the dinosaur. I mean, think about that, since before the dinosaur. They've survived 5 mass extinctions. And now in our lifetime, they really are under threat. So we need to educate ourselves. We need to respect sharks. And then lastly, we need to have global protection for sharks. Not one nation can protect sharks on their own. All of us now have to really work hard to protect them. I'm off now to a very big ocean conference, which is taking place in Nice. There'll be lots of heads of state and environment ministers there.
Louis Pugh, congratulations on an incredible feat, and thank you for sharing your message with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.